Hello and welcome to the Inner Gamer On. My name is Brett Yanoski.
I'm Devin Duree.
I'm Luis Gonzalez.
Luis.
Yeah. Today our discussion topic is going to be submitted from one of our very, very loyal fans, David Bond. He sent in the question about video games being art, and this is what he had to say. Do you guys believe that video games are becoming more of an art form as opposed to being a form of entertainment? The same way stuff like movies were experimental and simple entertainment during the silent film era and evolving to a higher art form during the golden age of Hollywood in the 1920s and beyond. The same thing can be said about jazz and rock music as well. As we have the benefit of hindsight, we see that movies, jazz, and rock music were all once considered deviant and major corrupting forces of the youth, but are now considered mainstream entertainment. That same attitude was also applied to video games in the last 2 decades of the 20th century, but attitudes began to shift in the 2000s. Taking that into consideration, do you believe that video game culture has already been fully integrated with society and reached full acceptance in 2018? Or do you believe that video games still have a long way to go before finally finding acceptance as a legitimate entertainment and art form? So, it's a lot to process in this question.
A lot to take in on that question.
First thing I want to jump into,
question.
It's a very great question, and it's one that I'm surprised we haven't really talked about as a formal discussion yet. Like we've talked about it, but like not.
I think we've kind of taken it for granted in a way.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe not taking it for granted, but maybe not actually. I guess given it the addressing that it needs,
right? So,
because we all kind of, I believe, think the same.
Let's start with the question of, are video games an art form? So I feel like all of us would agree, yes. But let's go through some examples about why they might be an art form. So Devin, I'd like you to start with just sharing like one game that you can explain or describe that is something that you feel solidifies the idea of this question. Are video games an art form?
So
put you on the spot there.
No, it's fine. So I come from a theater background. That's what my degree is in. I have a bachelor's in fine arts, and one of my courses that I took was theater history. And if we look back at theater history, if we look back at really any of these medias, we're looking back at these art forms. I mean, we call them art forms now. They all started out either very simple or some were just very religious, and they were all ceremonious and almost as if they were some sort of heritage or I don't want to say like a religious. I don't want to go and like full and say it was like it was very heavy Catholic influence when you're talking like way long ago, at least from a theater standpoint. But as we progress forward, we see that this is kind of the same thing that happens with all media,
right?
Literature, then we move to music, then we move to the film industry, and now the video game industry. As these times have gone on, everything has evolved. And for me, looking at this from that standpoint, from that sort of what it started out to what it's evolved to, video games are indeed an art form, duh. And the one thing I would say probably that really solidified it for me where I could say, wow, this is truly something that is artistic in nature. I'm going to sound weird saying this game, but Flower.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah.
Games have been a media where they're fun, they're entertainment, they are to be enjoyed leisurely and socially, and they have all different impacts on different people for different reasons. But when I think of art, I think of that game that just immediately comes to my head. It's the vibrancy and the colors and how the game starts because of a dilapidated city, a concrete jungle where it's nothing but cityscapes and stuff that would make you feel like nature is non-existent. And then when you actually start the game and you're flying through the fields and you're seeing all the colors and the flowers blooming and the sounds and the soundtrack itself with the music, there's no other definition needed. That is art. Period.
So I wasn't like ignoring what you were saying there. I was trying to find the name of the creative director behind that game company.
Oh yeah,
Jenova Chen is his name, and
Yeah.
I listened to an interview with him on, I want to say it was the IGN podcast or something like that, and he was talking about like that was his utmost like goal with all of his games. So Flower and the Journey and the new game that's coming out, Sky, I think is what it's called. All those games that he worked on, his goal was to shift the idea of them being entertainment and being appreciated in another way. So as art and as something that can be it's like an experience for people to feel something and have that sense of connection with a game that isn't just going to watch a blockbuster film that's explosions and things of that nature.
Michael
It's
Bay.
actually, Michael Bay. So, that was his whole focus. And, that's not going to get you a bunch of money, but that is going to help a lot when it comes to pushing the industry forward. Because they set an example that you're now starting to see games like What Remains of Edith Finch and things of that nature that are creating this new conversation that, they can be considered art forms. And I like what David said in his notation about like jazz and rock music and everything like that. Back when they first came out, they were like, "Oh, this is bad. This is like,
this is the devil's
evil
music.
Stuff
This is corrupting our youth." And it's ludicrous to me to even think that, because even when you think about what the word art implies, I mean, I have it up here. Give me a sec. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines art as the conscious use of skill and creative imagination, especially in the production of aesthetics objects, the art of painting landscapes, or the work so produced, a gallery for modern art. We're talking about an expression here.
Yeah.
And yes, they're games, but they have achieved so much more since their birth back in the early 80s. They have come milestones. Yes, the graphics are obviously different. We can play them on all different kinds of platforms, but it's their impact to me that demonstrates the full definition of that conscious use of skill and creative imagination. I mean, that's truly art. And you can apply that to any of them. Literature, the Marquis de Sade, the psycho that he still created very strange but very defined art.
Yeah. Even things like even Minecraft as an example of something that it gives you the ability. It's like your canvas. Like you enter into Minecraft, and Minecraft is your canvas to create something.
Right.
And it's a building game, so it's just like having Legos, but instead you're in a game. But the things that people have created in Minecraft are incredible. Like somebody rebuilt like the Death Star in Minecraft, and I'm like,
well, and you can look at that from so many different. Yeah, you can look at that from a couple of different fronts of people who recreate incredible architectures, or people who just want to create incredible works of art themselves. The one that I saw that still blows my mind today is someone created I think it was 2,500 times sized Mona Lisa.
What?
They took the Mona Lisa
and blew it up
by 2,500 times. Wow. Using using Minecraft landscapes.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, how does someone do that? And I'm talking like not just like a pixelated version. I'm talking like the fracking Mona Lisa.
Right.
So as someone may say that that's a waste of time, people say that about all art. That's incredible.
I agree. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating, some of the things that can be done. And I look forward to games like Dreams or Dream, to see what people can do with that. Because I remember back when Gary's Mod came out, that was a game that used an existing engine, and in that you had creative freedom to not only build things that looked cool, but you could also engineer things that function in an interesting way. And I mean, to me, that can be an art form in itself, because the Olympics that just took, they're taking place right now. Like they created this like drone during the opening ceremony. They had this drone spectacle presentation of them working in sync, which is an engineering achievement for one, but it was beautiful. I mean, it was like, that is an incredible thing to look at. And, it created that emotional, that connection with that experience. And that's a lot of what these games do. So like with Dreams, I can't wait to see what people do with that, because this is your canvas at this point. Like, it sounds like what they're building is going to be something where you can create and build anything you want. And the only limitation is your imagination. And that's pretty powerful.
Yeah,
so
I'd agree.
That'll be a lot of fun. So,
yeah, the video game art form thing for me, going back to just the way they were brought up, right, where they first came from, like there was no way that people could add story or music or any of that kind of stuff to it in the beginning. So it only makes sense that people initially thought of them as sort of a form of entertainment, and in a lot of ways they still are. But as you start to add all these different elements and, also the ability to interact with those elements, that's where you kind of, get to this point where people still think of it as entertainment, but I think it's just sort of in the perspective that you have. Because in a lot of ways, maybe some games are just entertainment. There's heart and soul that goes into soundtracks and, sound recording and stuff like that. But, some video games really just don't have a purpose. They're just kind of, they're there to be there. And that's also fun. But as far as considering them art, I think it's something that unless people who, don't play games play them and understand them as, ways to communicate things or ways to, speak out on certain topics. For example, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, talking about, psychosis and all of those things. People won't know that video games have more to them. And it kind of sucks that way. But video games have also only been around for like 50 years. Like, they haven't really been around that long.
Yeah.
And movies have been around for fucking ever. Art has been around since, I don't know, the birth of man. Like, all of these things, they all
Cave
play
paintings.
into... Yeah. And in a lot of ways, all of those things are also somewhat injected into video games, which I think also gives it a different level, not only of interactability, but of, ability to speak out in different ways. I mean... I think of them as art, but it's like with an asterisk, but like a good asterisk, because art you look at, movies you watch, music you listen to, video games you do all of those things, and you can touch and feel them. Like, it's pretty awesome.
That is
and you're sort of an extension of that art too. Like, in a lot of ways, you're kind of that last bit of detail, making sure that everything kind of fits together. Without you, the player, then none of this gets stitched together. So in a lot of ways, it's even more than art.
Head on over to thegamer.net for our full podcast episode for our weekly game impressions and top headlines of the week.
That's one of me doing an interview. Here's one of all of us. We'll mix some cool
things.
Brett's also right here.
Like this video, subscribe, keep up with all the latest video game news and opinions that you care about right here on The Inner Gamer.